going to say something about the Islamic law and the protection of children during the war conflict, and then to give some conclusion and recommendation. Okay, modern welfare and increased suffering of children. This is something what's going on differs from the previous. There are two characteristics which I have taken out as the most important for this purpose here. The first is that today there is the modern weapon, okay, that has been, or still, more and technology, and by using these modern weapons, it cause great damage to the people, to the infrastructure, to everything. The second characteristic of the modern warfare is that the modern wars are not wars between the states. Unfortunately, these wars are within the states. As a support for this argument, I'm going to quote Miss Michelle, and at the end of I will quote and I have to read out. It's presented here, and it's really, at the end of the last century, according to the groundbreaking 1996 report of the experts of the Secretary General, submitted pursuant to General Assembly Resolution 48/157. Now, there is a quotation. In 1995, 30 major armed conflicts raged in different locations around the cultural rights, different locations around the world. All of them took place within the state. All of them. What means this is now for decade from 1985 till 1995. Between the factions split along ethnic, religious, or cultural lines. The conflict destroyed crops, places of worship, and schools. Nothing was spared, held sacred, or protected. No children, families, or communities. No. In the past decade, an estimated 2 million children have been killed in armed conflict. It's really horrible. 3 times as many have been seriously injured or permanently disabled. Many of them maimed by landmines. Please, next. Now, this trend continued, and as time is very limited, I will just mention here how it reflects on the refugees as well. As you can see here, according to UNICEF, around the world today, and this is information from the last year, September 2016, which means just 1 year back. 50 million children have been migrated across the borders or been forcibly displaced within their own countries. More than half, a shocking 28 millions, has been uprooted by horrific conflicts. United Nations Children Fund, UNICEF, September 2016. Now you can see here some data here, and I would like to move to the next. Now, about the Yemen, what I'm sure you know even much more than about the history, but I just want to mention a few things regarding first the independence of the North Yemen from the Ottoman Empire. It happened in 1918. The British, who had set up a protectorate area around the southern part of Aden in the 18th century, they withdrew in 1967 from what became a South Yemen. Now, because the North and South Yemen, all this period, there were not good relations, and it caused a massive exodus of thousands of Yemenis from the south to the north, contributed to 2 decades of hostility between the states. What means here we can see that instability were there for the long period of the time. What we need to keep in the mind that the Yemen is the most poor country in Middle East. And this is something what, of course, were having a great impact on instability in the region. Unfortunately, there were no investment, there were no development, that we have education there, we have industry, that the people are educated, working, and having a good life, and not having, much reason for a conflict. Okay, from the war and worsening situation, I have no time to go into details, starting from 2015, and we know more or less what was going from that time. Regarding to the total population, regarding to the total population, it's very, from source to source, I found about 27 million and 400,000, July estimated to 2016. Some are saying that for this year, when I went to the website, they said it is now 28 million and so on. Here there is information about the area. Then there is, Yemen is divided into main divisions, governors and districts. And you have seen here the map. We have 22 governorates, including capital Sana'a and archipelages. Okay, now I want to go next, because time is running out, the humanitarian crisis in Yemen. Unfortunately, we have the biggest humanitarian crisis in the world today in Yemen. It's not more Iraq, it is not more Syria, it is the Yemen. There are several figures here which I have quoted. I just want to inform you here that my quotations, the sources for my quotation are either UNHCR, Red Cross, human rights, international human rights organizations. I was not relying on the sources of the parties in conflict. The current ongoing civil war in Yemen has caused the biggest humanitarian crisis in the world today, even bigger than that of Syria or Iraq. According to UN Human Rights Office of the High Commission, UN figures suggested that 21 million people, 82% of the population, are in need of humanitarian assistance. It's a really great number. 7 million of them are facing famine. In this recent statement, UNICEF Executive Director Anthony Lake stated, the country is on the brink of famine, with over 60% of the population not knowing where their next meal will come from. Nearly 2 million children are accurately malnourished. This is information given, details that are given by UNICEF. Now, according to the most recent report, and this is from the 1st August, I was trying to be updated, with all new developments, and this is from World Health Organization. According to them, I'm quoting, as of 1st August, World Health Organization reports a cumulative 443,166 suspected cholera cases. Now, there are multiply, reflection of this crisis. We have malnutrition, we have the cholera, and we have displacement and many other violations, okay, of the rights of the children. Now, and 1,921 associated deaths. That means out of this, who is the most suffering here? The cholera is affecting the most vulnerable of Yemenis. Children under the age of 15 account for 41% suspected cases and a quarter of the deaths, while those aged of 60 represent 30% of fatalities. On October 26, 16, I'm going back 1 year when I was searching for information how many people are displaced. UN Officer of Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs reported that some 3.27 million people, half of them children, again, half of them children, were internally displaced within Yemen, an increase of more 150,000 since December 2015. Please, I would like to go to the next because I think time is running out. This is coordinator. This is the Undersecretary General for Humanitarian Affairs and Emergency Relief, Mr. Stephen O'Brien. What he said was really shocking, and he said that every 10 minutes, one child dying in the Yemen. Now, let us see the next charts here, and there are here some information about this humanitarian crisis. Beside what we have already mentioned, we need also to mention, for example, there are 14.5 million people, including children, don't have access to the safe drinking water and adequate sanitation. 14.8 million people, including children, are cut off from health care and other things. You may get, whoever wants may get the article from me and get with full reference regarding to this. Okay, now let us say how much time I have. Okay, sorry, because I was not aware about time. Violation of international humanitarian law. Okay. There is the complete agreement between major international human rights organizations that all parties on the conflict responsible for a great violation against the children. I have mentioned here what actually Amnesty International mentioned in its reports, mentioning not only Amnesty International, other organizations as well mentioned that both all parties in the war violated this. There is a grave violation of the rights of the children. What I was doing as a next step, I was focusing actually on the four most serious, in comparison to others, and then have some focus on them. Our task in this presentation will be to mention some most grave violation affecting the children in Yemen is killing and maiming of children, attacks on hospital and school, denial on humanitarian access, and recruitment and use of children. Killing and maiming children. We have already mentioned there regard to this. Here, what I'm going to mention again, I'm coming back. We have seen his picture. In his statement, I again going to quote him. in his statement to the Security Council on Yemen on 26 January 2017, Under Secretary General of Humanitarian Affairs and Emergency Relief Coordinator Stephen O'Brien has stated, among other things, a shocking piece of information, one I have already mentioned. Then he also stated that since hostilities began in March 2015, more than 1,400 children have been killed and over 2,140 injured. Another 1,441 children have been recruited by warring parties, some as young as 8 years old. The actual number are likely to be much higher. Bismarck Svengin, who is the communication specialist for UNICEF Yemen, is of the view that humanitarian crisis is in fact a children crisis, saying that, now I'm quoting, when you look at the number of children who are staring at death due to malnutrition, and now that the compounded by the cholera outbreak, children are not only being killed as a result of conflict, but more children are at risk and could die from indirect consequences. Now, please next. I have 5 minutes. They are warning you. I have to be careful. Okay. Now, here, this is information for 2017. Okay. According to the Meritex Relano, she is UNICEF resident representative in Yemen. She said, I'm quoting here, in 2007, 201 children killed in Yemen, 150 boys and 49 girls. 347 Yemeni children were maimed, including 113 girls. And that 377 boys were recruited in the ongoing fight in Yemen. Okay. Go please, Lex. There are also attacks on the school and hospitals. Here, according to UNICEF, between March 26, 2015 and December 31st, 2016, parties of the conflict carried out 93 attacks against the hospitals. According to the international community of Red Cross, parties in the conflict carried out more than 160 attacks against the medical facilities. I think now I have no time for all these details. I would like to say a few words from Islamic point of view and then go to the conclusion and recommendation. There is denial of humanitarian access. There is here one, please come back to the 7. There is one good news I just want to share with you, that spokesman of forces of Saudi Arabia, they informed the UN before few days they are willing to give UN to control a Sana'a airport and to allow the flow of medicine, food, and for relief operation. This is something which was in New York Times just before 3-4 days. Okay, this is about the denial. Okay, now regarding to the Islamic, there is recruitment of use of children. Here, the Houthis are mostly accused by an international humanitarian organization for this. Yemen on May 14, 2014. The Yemen government signed an action plan with the UN to end the recruitment of children by state force, but this was not followed after that. Islamic law and the protection of the children. We know that the human, according to the Quran and the Sunnah, it's strongly prohibited killing the innocent children, women. That according to the Maqasid al-Shari'ah, the life is to be preserved, the most important after Iman. Almighty Allah says in Holy Quran, if you save one life as you have saved all humanity, and if you kill one without a reason, unjustly, then as you have killed all the humanity. There is enormous agreement among all the fuqaha. This is more strongly prohibited. There are different hadiths from Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam where this is prohibited. There is a saying of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq with this regard, who I have no time now. What I just want to mention here, just one thing, how the life is valued as well from only one tradition. When the Prophet ﷺ said about the woman who was she was keeping the cat inside the room, not allowing the cat, not giving cat any food, no drink, not allowing to get out, and due to starvation that cat died. And then due to that reason the Prophet ﷺ said that this woman is in Jahannam. Regarding to the conclusion, I'm just going briefly. I'm just a lobby, okay? Or to go for recommendation, whatever. I think it's better to go for recommendation because I have I think enough time now. Okay, I just go with recommendation. I have mentioned several recommendations here. I'm going to read out quickly. Allow the UN to take control of Sana'a International Airport in Yemen and facilitate easier delivery of humanitarian aid, sending sick and wounded out of the country for the medical treatment whenever the proper medical treatment is not available in the country. Creation of special UN protective zones where the medical treatment of the large number of the patients with cholera and malnutrition could be possible, with establishment of a large number of field hospitals. UN peacekeeping force need to assist a delivery of humanitarian aid by establishing humanitarian corridors throughout the country. The children in Yemen must not be in any case the biggest victim of proxy war between different countries. OIC must become independent and unifying force between the Muslims worldwide, able to bring peace and prosperity within the whole Muslim Ummah and provide necessary help for so many refugee children who are in need. The establishment of joint UN peacekeeping force consisting from various Muslim countries neutral in Yemen war seems to be one of the required prerequisite for the establishment of effective and lasting peace in war-torn Yemen. And last, the existing rules regarding to the protection of the children rights are not enough. Therefore, the existing rules of international humanitarian law concerning the protection of children during the war are obviously insufficient and therefore ought to be supplemented with the new ones separately dedicated only to the protection of children during the war and afterwards, which will ensure the greater protection of the children. The same task needs to be assigned to OIC as well, primarily because a large number of these war-affected children are from the Muslim countries, and therefore taking care of these children is the duty and concern of all Muslim Ummah. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sozek Sejo, for his valuable contribution. I have been told that Dr. Abdul Qadir Swebe wants to leave for some urgent work. Therefore, with the permission of the chair, I would like to request the chair to please present souvenir to the honorable speaker. Yes. जी यहाँ पर Dr. Abdul Qadir Srepo, Head of Department of Dawa and Islamic Culture, Faculty of Affairs in Islamic University, Islamabad. Thank you very much. Now I would like to call on the stage Ambreen Abbasi, Assistant Professor, Faculty of Shari'ah and Law, International Islamic University, Islamabad, for his contribution.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. What we owe to the abandoned children. I have tried to highlight this important social issue through today's presentation, and I will start with the term abandoned or parentless children. Next, please. Abandon means to leave completely or finally, to give up or withdraw from or to cast away, desert, leave a property or a child. Lokata is an Arabic term which is used for something that someone's find in public places, whether it is property, animal, or a human being. Now the term parentless, which has been used by the conference organizers, that a word not even used in the dictionary, not being a right word. The question is, how can a child be a parentless child? We use these terms abandoned or unattended for the children whereabouts of them are not known or who are not taken care by their families. Since there is no specific study as to the cases of these unattended or abandoned or adopted children, but it can be speculated that they are abandoned for a reason mentioned here, like these children are born out of the wedlocks, either forced or consented. Then the state of poverty also contributes in our country towards these abandoned children. The economic condition of any family who cannot afford financial liabilities, or who cannot undertake the financial liabilities of their children, they leave them on the mercy of the others. Then, and again, a very unfortunate phenomena of our society, that is the want of a male child. Another negative approach which has been highlighted here, the social pressure, that sometimes family or social pressure can make a single mother to abandon her child to be accepted for a subsequent marriage. Natural factors, of course, unavoidable natural factors which can also contribute towards this issue of abandoned children, like war, flood, earthquake, epidemics, by causing death of their parents or other family relatives. Usually the solution we see in all such cases in either by destroying the fetus, results in by destroying the fetus, that is abortion, and the second stage is after birth, that abandoning that child. We can place these children into different categories, like first is the newborn or infant. Usually we can find them in places like garbage dumps or other dark corners of the cities. Then comes the street children of different ages with or without families or the guardians. Then comes the category of the laboring children in different factories or workshops or marketplaces or even in our houses or in home. Then comes the runaway children. For multiple reasons, we can see them in the streets, sleeping on the roadsides or other in the markets or places such like that. Here, the example of Javed Iqbal's case can be cited as an example to understand the vulnerability of these children, how vulnerable these children are in our society. Then comes the second part of the presentation, that is Islamic perspective of the issue, which has been generally discussed here. As we believe that Islam is a complete code of life for all the people at all the times and in all the places. Basic rights and liabilities or duties of all human beings can it be a fetus, child, young or old person, male or female, are clearly described in Shari'ah, and these are not subject to the desires or demands of any family, community, or not even a government. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has done it for us, keeping the capability of us in view. At the same time, physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being of child at all stages is given equal weight in our religion. A relevant question here is cases where the child is deprived of such rights and family protection for some reasons. Who is responsible for the protection of that child? Next, please. The issue of child protection is very clear in Islam, and responsibility is placed on different categories in hierarchy of different relations, but primarily it is placed on the parents, of course, but in absence of one or both the parents, the family, either extended or immediate family. Then comes the role to be played by the society or the state, and that I would say that government. In no way the right is waived. Even in the absence of anyone, the state is made wali or the guardian depending on the circumstances of a particular case. Whatever the mode of alternate care for the child is adopted, the principle of best interest of the child is to prevail over everything, and that is in line with the objectives of the Sharia. Now, for the protection of these children without family care, Islam has recognized two concepts are relevant here. Two concepts are relevant here, though they are different, but at times they interrelate. That is guardianship and custody. But generally, what the term we use is the kafala for adoption purposes, for foster parenting, and other alternative care mode. Kafala means sponsorship or to feed. Under Islamic law, the process of kafala is voluntary undertaking to take care of maintenance, education, and overall upbringing of the minor. However, Quran and Hadith is very clear as to lineage and inheritance issues in such cases, and the child cannot be deprived of biological name by giving a new name, altering or confounding his lineage or light associated therewith. Inheritance shares are again fixed, and only 1/3 of the wealth, which can be used through will or gift and alms, can also be used to provide financial benefit for such categories of children. But as a matter of fact, Islam does not recognize any direct concept of kafala or adoption. Parentage in Islam at first recognized through blood ties and all other related rights like inheritance, maintenance, guardianship, custody, fosterage are all associated to the same. But on the other hand, there is a moral or spiritual duty, either in individual capacity or in communal capacity, towards these destitute children and vulnerable children like orphans who lack basic necessities of life. Islam has encouraged to look after them. Coming to the next part, under international obligation that Pakistan owes towards children, Pakistan is a signatory to International Convention on Rights of Child, and as such has an obligation under international law for the protection of children. Pakistan as such is a Muslim state, is bound not only internationally under international law, but religiously it is bound to protect the rights of the children. Some of the relevant articles of the CRC are mentioned here. The child shall be registered immediately after birth and has the right to name and nationality and to know and be cared for by his or her parents. Article 19, next please. State parties shall take appropriate legislative, administrative, and social educational measure to protect the child from all forms of physical and mental violence, injury or abuse, neglect or negligent treatment, maltreatment or exploitation, including sexual abuse, while in the care of parents, legal guardians, or any other person who has the care of the child. Then comes Article 20, which says that child temporarily or permanently deprived of his or her family environment, or in whose best interest cannot be allowed to retain in that environment, shall be entitled to special protection and assistance provided by the state. State parties shall, in accordance with their national laws, ensure alternative care for such a child. Such care could include inter alia foster placement, kafala in Islamic law, adoption, or if necessary there were certain other conditions associated with these alternate care modes. Then comes Article 21, which states that state parties that recognize and permit the system of adoption shall ensure that best interest of child shall be the paramount consideration in all such cases. And same principle is also highlighted in the Article 3 of the same convention. And as we can see that these articles in their specific context are in conformity with the general principles of Shari'ah. Coming to the practical aspects, one of the right, that is birth registration, is a basic right of child under CRC, and access to other fundamental rights. As citizen of any state, right to identity, name or nationality, that also depends on the birth registration. It is also a determining factor of age in cases like early marriage, child labor, armed forces recruitment, detention or prosecution as adult or a minor. UNICEF in its report in 2013 revealed in a report that Pakistan approximately 16 million children under age 5 are unregistered for multiple reasons. Further, Pakistan was also rated as 3rd out of 10 countries with highest number in the unregistered children worldwide. Birth registration is the subject of Nadra in Pakistan, which the registration policy was severely criticized previously, that it refused to recognize guardianship, to acknowledge wards as legitimate, and register adopted children under the name of the guardian. And this strict procedural approach contributed to the culture of fake birth registration, marriage, and fake parents to legitimize their children. And previously, father, husband, and unknown Namalum was the term which was available option for the registration. Supreme Court in 2011 on ED's request, and at the same time Supreme Appellate Court of Gilgit-Baltistan also questioned the Nadra's policy back in 2011. In response, Nadra made following changes which have been given here. Procedures, amended the procedure. Now space was made in the CNIC and name to the name of the guardians. CNIC to carry names of their legally adopted parents or the guardians. And then the head of the orphanage where the child lived was granted eligibility to become legal guardian for the legal guardian of the concerned child by submitting an affidavit, provided that there were some other procedural and documentation related amendments in the new policy, which are given here, and you can have a look in the next slide, please. As far as the procedural aspect is concerned, this new policy was a positive step toward betterment of for our purpose and of course for ED and other different organizations. But there was a problem with the new policy that it provided only for the limited protection. Guardianship only extended to those governmental and non-governmental organizations, orphanages and welfare centers which are registered with NADRA. Informal adoption is beyond this protection. And according to some estimates, this protection covers not half of the unprotected children. Many of them are still unprotected. In some cases, strict rules are also required for protection of these children from authorities that are taking care of those children from any abuse or exploitation. The registration in such cases is not sufficient. The next stage question is what to do with these children after they turn into adults or after 18 years of age. There is no policy on how to integrate them in the society after that point. And here the psychological, sociological and economic aspect of the issue becomes very relevant as the major issue they face, these children face in their later stages of their life. After you can say that if they are left or they are given authority to leave the orphanage or other guardianship, that will be a kind of a second abandonment at that stage. Towards the solution, regulated adoption can be an option. By regulated, I mean supervised and monitored by a state, though not a conclusive or exclusive option, but to mitigate or reduce the intensity of the issue. Legally, adoption is an act of permanently placing a child with the parent or other parents other than the biological parents that result in a transfer of parental responsibilities and right of biological parent to the adoptive parents. And generally, there is no legal difference between biological and adopted children after the completion of an adoption. Some exceptions may apply depending on the law of particular state, as we have discussed inheritance or other lineage-related issues. In Pakistan, there is no specific law that governs or regulates adoption, but that does not make adoption illegal either. Guardian and Ward Act practically regulates the process of adoption, but do not institutionalize the same. Generally, courts have never refused for the adoption even by a single parent as long as they are fulfilling the requirement of good character and financial condition. But adoption as practiced in Western world is forbidden in Islam. And the view of traditional Islamic legal position, although the concept of kafala is present, some argued that guardianship is sufficient, but this is somehow deceptive because guardianship is quite different from adoption, as responsibility or obligation of a guardian comes to an end as soon as the ward attains the age of majority. And we can say that guardianship is a partial adoption. Recognizing adoption as an institution is beneficial in multiple ways, like firstly, it is benefiting for the abandoned children in society with the condition of secure psychological environment for them by the adoptive family. Secondly, the legal adoption will advance the respect for law, as in practice many people adopted child through forged documentations as a biological child. Thirdly, this will also help to promote the inter-country adoption of our children, which was basically the main issue in the Gilgit-Baltistan's case, which I have mentioned earlier. Of course, all these things subject to Islamic law. Since Shari'ah is considered to be active to keep up its relevance in updating to the needs of changing circumstances through ijtihad. Regarding adoption and inheritance issue, ijtihad assume key significance. Otherwise, traditional views hold lean towards apathy. Since support system of extended families becoming uncommon in modern ages, hence require review of rules, and this review can be undertaken by Parliament, which can perform the exercise of ijtihad in the modern times. Coming to the child protection legislation in Pakistan, Pakistan is a dualistic state. Under international conventions are not directly enforceable until there is enabling legislation making them law of the land. Pakistan has not introduced any comprehensive federal law with regard to the CRC, and courts cannot apply convention in the courts directly. Similarly, child and family matters are considered to be personal or private affairs, allowing at least state intervention under the traditional communal value system. And the child protection in Pakistan is a matter of provincial jurisdiction, and development and enacting child protection legislation vary from province to province. Some of the provincial legislations are mentioned here. I'm not going to go into the details, but legislation in province to some extent are done, but implementation is falling short of what is required. And efforts for federal legislation are also unpredictable. Now coming to the status of CRC in the national laws, firstly, the Constitution of Pakistan, which generally does not differentiate between adults or minors, but some child-specific provisions are there, which are mentioned here. Article 11, Subclause 3, Article 25, Article 26.3, and then comes Article 35 and Article 37. Since time constraints, I'm not going into details. There's no specific Child Act in Pakistan, but different provisions on child rights are also incorporated in both general thematic codes and other specific acts. Again, there's a list, some of the relevant laws, again, not exclusive list, but some are mentioned here, which you can have a look on the list. We have laws, but scattered provisions are there. To conclude, I would suggest that there is an urgent need to develop a balanced approach between Pakistan's international and religious obligation on the one side, as well as local social attitude towards children protection, of course, on the other side. Establishment of formal administrative institutional structure along with the relevant secondary legislation which authorizing implementation. Enactment of comprehensive federal legislation providing a national standard of protection, by that I mean some uniform, including the including the regulation of kafala adoption system we established locally. Public awareness campaigns are also important, and a systematic organized effort to educate people on the sensitivity and importance of the child protection. Compulsory education and schooling and penal action for those parents who do not comply and can also help to reduce the number of children in the streets. Zakat system can also be regulated to ensure special provision or support program for these children as well as their families. Then finally, I would conclude with the quote that when there is a will, there is a way. So we have to have that will. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Ambreen Abbasi, for her valuable input. Now I would like to call Taj Muhammad, lawyer, to please come on the stage and present his paper.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Actually, the paper was written by Maryam Sherwani, and since she is out of country for Hajj, I am just filling for her to present the paper. The topic is right of refugee children under Islamic law and international human rights law, a legal analysis. The issue is very serious and very important because according to data available on UNHCR website, around about more than 60 million people are forcefully displaced from their homes. Among these great number of people, 22.5 million people are refugees, and half of these refugees are under age of 18 years. So half of the refugees, around about 11 million people, are refugee children. Next. Who is refugee? First of all, we have to identify who is refugee. There are characteristics given by the Article 1A2 of the Refugee Convention of 1951, which says that any individual who is out of his native country, out of a country for which he is a citizen, and he is out of his country not because of finding some job or not to visit some other country, rather he is out of his country due to well-founded fear of public disorder, persecution, civil war, or natural disaster. And secondly, he is unwilling or unable to avail the protection of his own country, his own legal system. And fourthly, he is unwilling or unable to go back to his country. Who is refugee child? Article 1 of the Convention on the Rights of Child says that a person who is below 18 years of age is a child, unless the country in which the person exists has specified some other age for a major. And there is no other unanimously accepted definition of child across the globe. Some countries have 15 years, some have 16 years, some have 18 years, and even some have, for some particular issues, 21 years to be a majority. Next. The difference between refugee and IDPs. Refugees is displaced from his home country. Likewise, the IDP, that is internally displaced person, is also displaced from his own home, not from his country. The difference is the refugee is out of his country, and the IDP is inside the country. Like many people from Swat and Waziristan after the Zarb Azb and the Operation Rahe-Najat, these people were displaced from their homes and they are in camps, IDP camps. Second difference is that the refugee is dealt with under the Refugee Convention 1951 and its protocol of 1967, but the IDPs are dealt with under the domestic law, and if the person is displaced due to armed conflict, some principles of international humanitarian law also may have application. Okay. Determination of refugee status for the child. The convention on the 1951 convention and its protocol of 1967 does not make any distinction on the basis of age, color, sex, religion, ethnicity. So the term refugee applies for the people of all ages and all religions and all ethnicities. Thus, every person who is out of his country due to well-founded fear of persecution and he is unwilling or unable to avail the protection of his own legal system and he is unable to return to his home country is refugee. And if he is under the age of 18, he is refugee child. And if the child not accompanied, if the refugee status is given for people, for parents, the same status will automatically be given to the refugee child who is accompanied by his parents. But if a refugee child is not accompanied by his parents, in that case, special consideration is needed to determine his refugee status. Next. There are certain problems which are faced by refugee child. First category of these problems is bad behavior in the host country, like intolerance, xenophobia, racism, suspect for certain crimes, lack of access to legal aid, lack of access to quality life, like they don't have access to clean water, they don't have access to safe and hygienic food, and they are mostly malnourished. Okay. Solutions for these problems. The first solution is that the best interest of the child, which is given by the Article 12 of the CRC, the Convention on the Rights of Child, that should be considered in every matter of the child. The second one is durable solution. These are many solutions. First is local integration, and second is because at times people are unable to go to their home country because the problem due to which they are out of their country, they linger on, the problem lingers on, so these people are bound to live outside the country, so they need to local integration. Second option is naturalization of the children with his or her family, and the third one is voluntary repatriation. If the situation in the home country gets well and the peace comes, then in that case the people should be asked to leave the host country and go back to their country. Okay. Rights of refugee child under Islamic law. First of all, a Muslim cannot be refugee in any Muslim state because under Islamic law every Muslim is citizen of every Muslim country. So to be a refugee, a person must not be citizen. So if a person is citizen of any country, he is not refugee in that country. So in this context, under Islamic law, a Muslim person cannot be refugee in any Muslim state. As far as non-Muslims are concerned, there is the concept of aman in Islamic law, which is given in the verse 6 of Surah Tawbah, which says, وَإِنْ أَحَدٌ مِّنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ اسْتَجَارَكَ فَأَجِرْهُ حَتَّى يَسْمَعَ كَلَامَ اللَّهِ ثُمَّ أَبْلِغْهُ مَأْمَنَهُ. That means any one of the polytheists asks you for protection, give the protection so that he may hear the word of Allah, then escort him to his place of safety. Now, who is able to, what is the concept of aman? That is, a person seeks aman, seeks protection in the Muslim country, and Muslims give the person protection and he comes inside the Muslim territory. Who has the authority to give aman, to offer aman? Technically speaking, legally speaking, every Muslim person who is adult, he can grant aman for every person who wants to come inside the Muslim country. But under the public interest, the Muslim ruler has authority to restrict this authority and delegate this to a certain department, or he can also confine this authority with his own self. Every individual has right to seek and be granted asylum. Child will have asylum with parents because in Islamic law, a child who is minor is tabi'. He is dependent of his parents. So wherever his father goes, the same status will be given to the child. Equal rights with the native people, best interest of the child, right to remain with the family. The person cannot be abandoned, cannot be separated from his family if he is minor. Right to return to their native country. If he wants to go back to his country, he has the right to go back. Next. Rights of refugee child under international human rights law. These are the laws which govern the refugee child. Some are general for every person, like IUDHR, ICCPR, ICESCR. These are general. These three are called the International Bill of Rights, and these are available for every person, whether he is refugee or he is inside his own country. The other law which is specific for the refugee is Refugee Convention 1951 and its Protocol of 1967, and UN Declaration on Rights of Child 1951, that is specifically for the children. UN Convention on the Right of Child 1989, that is also specifically for the children. Rights of refugee, next. Okay. Rights of refugee child under IHRL, International Human Rights Law. First is right of refugee status, which we have discussed already. Right to life, Article 3 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights of 1948 says that every person has the right to life. Right to protection, tracing family, that is General Assembly Resolution number 35187 of 15 December says that the country who is party to this, they will cooperate with the children to trace the family of the children if the person is separated from his family. Protection from torture and ill treatment, freedom of religion, that is given in the Article 4 of UDHR, personal status. access to court, right to housing, right to education, right to public relief, right to leave any country including his own, if right to return, non-refoulement. That is very important for specifically for the refugee. Every country, if that country is party to the refugee convention, and if according to the general principles of international law as well, customary international law also says that if a person is refugee and he is in a country, the host country cannot send the person back to his country if the person is not willing to go back to his country. And due process of law, that is fundamental right of every person, that if he is accused of any crime, he cannot be punished without following the due process of law. Next. Previous. Okay. Right of refugee children under IHRL, freedom of movement, freedom of nationality. Every person has the right to nationality. This has been also discussed in the previous presentation. Not to be subject to arbitrary arrest, detention, and or exile. Right to seek asylum. Every person has right to seek asylum. Whether he is given that asylum status or not, that is other issue. But every person has right to seek asylum if he is out of his country. Conclusion. Next. Concluding the paper, both Islamic law and IHRL, as we have already discussed in the previous slides, have certain principles governing the rights of refugees. It is the responsibility of international community to protect refugees in general and refugee child in particular, because the adult person can somehow manage his safety and his earnings, but the child is the most vulnerable group of the society, so that needs more attention and more care. Recommendations. Okay, special care to child, solutions on the priority basis, introduction of an effective mechanism for enforcement of and protection of the rights of refugee child. So there should be an effective mechanism that includes, if the host countries should be pressurized to formulate or to legislate to govern the issues of refugee child, because international law at times becomes unable to enforce the law because the sovereignty of states somehow can be a hurdle of enforcing these rights. International organizations and NGOs should play their role in this regard. They can build pressure on the host states to care of the refugees and to pay attention to them. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you very much, Mr. Taj Mohammed, for his valuable contribution. Now I would like to request and invite the chair of this session, Dr. Ziaullah Rahmani, Senior Program Officer, ICRC, for his concluding remarks.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulil Ameen. We have been listening to the research papers regarding the rights of children in Islam, and some papers which have been describing how those rights have been violated, are being violated in today's modern world. We know that this is an unfortunate fact, that a chain of crises is going on, and the most vulnerable part of the population are, women and children in those crises. Although there are many laws, there are many rules which afford a lot of good protection to those vulnerable segments of the populations, but unfortunately we see a lot of violation as well. I represent International Committee of the Red Cross, which is in the field, working in the field for the past more than 150 years. And in the work which the International Committee of the Red Cross has chosen for itself, there is a particular focus on children. So we know that in disasters, whenever there are disasters, either man-made or natural disasters, so children are particular victims in those disasters. if they are not deprived, sorry, for of their lives, so they are deprived of the essentials like food, clean water, healthcare, shelter, and then they can become, victims in many different ways, like they can be separated from their families, and when they are separated from their families, so we know that no one can take good care or perfect care or the care which a parent would like for his children, for his child. Anyone else cannot substitute his parents or her parents. Secondly, in the armed conflicts, we see that children are used sometimes as child soldiers, or directly or indirectly they are used, the services are taken in different ways in the armed conflict, which of course again bring them to a lot of things which are hostile to them. Many times children end up in detention in the armed conflicts. When we talk of the armed conflicts, they might be born to detained women in detention, or they might be accompanied with a detained person. Sometimes the parent is detained and the children has no other way, the infant has no other way but to be with his mother in the detention. Likewise, disasters also take their toll on education. We know that schools may be deliberately targeted or incidentally damaged. Then children in detention, we know that schooling is denied to them. Now, in all this unfortunate situation, the ICRC, International Committee of the Red Cross, with many, many other institutions who are working for the children's welfare, ICRC is also working in the field. We know that there are great resources which are utilized for this purpose, but the problems and the crises are unlimited. And again, no one can fulfill, the needs which are there in the field. The ICRC works in two dimensions. One is legal. So we know that there are a lot of legal instruments which are there for the protection of children. So ICRC in one way encourages, persuades to have proper legal instruments for that purpose, and then also tries through its particular modus operandi to persuade the governments, the authorities, or any other groups who are in authority in certain areas to implement those rules and to take care of those rules. Now, coming to, because we are in Pakistan, so in Pakistan, and let me say that ICRC works in like 80 countries of the world, and particularly in those countries where there are big crises like Afghanistan, Yemen, etc. And you can sometimes see in the news, the workers of the ICRC working in the field with the Red Cross and Red Crescent Society's workers. And it depends on the situation of every country and the scope or the space which is given to ICRC for its work, that it shows how to work and how to go about it. In Pakistan, currently, ICRC is actually taking a mode of partnership with the local institutions. So instead of establishing its own institutions, its own hospitals, etc., ICRC has understood that in such a big population like Pakistan, it cannot make a difference if it tries to do things itself. But it can make a good difference if it tries to transfer the expertise which it is having to the local institutions, and in the shape of training, in the shape of education, in the shape of sometime, funding their different projects. So currently there are two big services available in Pakistan, and from these two big services, it is mostly the children who are benefited. One is the physical rehabilitation service. So those children, or anyone for that matter, who loses his limb for any reason, either in an armed conflict or, because we have a lot of landmines in our country, on the borders and in certain areas. So ICRC helps, or ICRC fit an artificial limb with its state-of-the-art expertise, international expertise, which it is having in this field for the past, more than 100 years. There are many institutions, local institutions, like if you know Indus Hospital in Karachi, which is a state-of-the-art hospital, Chal Foundation, and there are many other hospitals, like in the PPOS in Peshawar, etc. So throughout the country, there are institutions which render this service of physical rehabilitation, and ICRC fully supports those institutions in training, funding, and transferring its expertise, to them. The second service, because of the shortage of time, this is a very long story, but I am just, shortening it. Another big service is what we call RFL, that is Restoring Family Links. So, because ICRC mainly works in those areas where armed conflict is there, or if ICRC is there and there is a disaster, any type of disaster, so in those disasters, people are separated from their families. So restoring family links is a very big expertise available to ICRC, and which it makes available to other people. In Pakistan, ICRC works closely with the Pakistan Red Crescent, which is Anjuman Hilal-e-Ahmar Pakistan, in this field. And of course, there are many, many stories, many, many examples, even in the recent days, where separated children have been reunited with their families. You can refer to the Facebook page of ICRC, International Committee of the Red Cross Pakistan Facebook page, and there are many, many stories which you can see and observe. So these are two services which are available in Pakistan for anybody, but mostly the children are benefited, from those services. If we talk worldwide, there are many, many other services, and there are many, many other activities which ICRC tries to make available for the children and to benefit the children. But I would stop here because the time is too short, and I don't want to become a hurdle between you and the lunch which is waiting for you. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ziaullah Rahmani, for his valuable contribution. First of all, I would like to thank you, His Excellency, the Ambassador of the Republic of Yemen, Muhammad Mutahar Al-Ashmi, for gracing the occasion with his physical presence. And at the same time, I would like to request His Excellency to please come on the stage and give his valuable remarks.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الصلاة والسلام على محمد وعلى صحبه أجمعين. طبعا I will talk in English, of course, it's better because the most audience are speaking English. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair, for giving me this opportunity to just give my own remarks. And thank you, Dr. Susek Sijo, for the topic about Yemen. Of course, there is no doubt I do agree with you to a good extent about what have you said. The child in Yemen is in a misery situation due to the crisis in Yemen, but and your recommendations was good recommendations, but there was some points we didn't raise it. In your speech, you balance between the rebellions and the legitimate government, and that is something. This is the problem of the international community. Even Resolution 2216 of the Security Council has asked the rebellions, Houthis and Saleh coalition to withdraw from the capital and surround the arms and to end the conflict, to go for the dialogue, again, to resume dialogue, national dialogue. Unfortunately, they are till today reluctant to cooperate, and even to surround Sana'a airport to the international surveillance and supervision, and also Al-Hudaida port, the seaport. The famine in Yemen, where is it? In Al-Hudaida, where the supplements and the all goods and services goods come from that place, and it is under the rebellion's capture, and the famine in that place. In Sana'a, there is no famine. The best building is being built today in Sana'a. The best cars in Sana'a, where it is captured by the rebellions. And the famine in Hudaida. How come? They are not allowing. We have circulated last week about details about how many assistance aid has been denied access, especially from GCC countries. They are investing in the agony of the people. Of course, the children, the women are the weak segment in the society, has been targeted from different areas. They are investing so that they say the people are infamous, so we have to impose international resolution, whatever it is, upon so they want to run off the commitment which have been asked by the international committee to do so. The stopping the war is in the hand of the rebellions. The government is daily. The government just last week initiated another proposal that is, okay, let Sana'a airport to be under this international surveillance. The previous initiative was let Hudaida seaport to be under, so that the cholera spreading cholera. Of course, we are facing one of the worst famine and that is disease in the decades. This is cholera. There is, of course, there have been a lot of efforts in this regard. We do appreciate the efforts of the Red Cross, the UNICEF, of course, at the front. UNICEF is doing a good job, and everywhere, and in Yemen, we appreciate very much. But this is, so I don't want to prolong the situation. The government is trying to find any solution to ease and to the situation in Yemen, humanitarian aspect, unfortunately. So I just request Dr. Sosek to add in his recommendation, that is to appeal to the rebellion not to invest on the agony of the people, and to come down to the commitment which is requested by international community to go for dialogue, to stop war, to surround the capital to the legitimate and to legitimate state government, and to go for dialogue. There is in 2216 resolution nothing. Just ask them stop war and go for dialogue, resume the dialogue, because dialogue we were at the end actually, but this is not in their favor. So they make this they orchestrated their in January 2015 and indulge and put the country in the big crisis, unfortunately. Thank you very much. I know this is not, I don't have the right for intervention, but just this comment. I do thank you very much, and the Islamic University for International University for this organizing the seminar. Of course, the child issue is a very important issue. It concerns each and everybody. May I wish Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala his blessings and the success to your conference, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, His Excellency, the Ambassador of Yemen, for his valuable contribution. Now the floor is open for questions. If somebody has any question, please.
Assalamu alaikum. Thanks for lectures. My question is related to abandoned children, I think, delivered by Ambreen Abbasi. Just could you please share some legislation made by countries other than Pakistan?
Yes, there's a case of Turkey, Tunisia, even in Indonesia. They have made adoption, they legalized adoption basically, but they have difference of their laws, but they have adopted legislation regarding abandoned children, and adoption is given as a solution in those cases. Even in Tunisia, they have given inheritance right. In Turkey, they have given complete inheritance to those adopted children. So there are other countries in which that legislation has been done.
My question to Brother Taj Mohammed. Why Pakistan is not still ratified the Geneva Convention 1951? Perspective of Afghan refugee crisis.
Despite the fact that Pakistan hosts millions of Afghan people and Burmese people in Pakistan as refugees, Pakistan, I think, did not ratify the 1951 convention, Refugee Convention 1951, because Pakistan is not willing to bear the responsibilities which could be imposed due to this this convention, because Pakistan has sent many Afghan forcefully to Afghanistan last year and this year as well. And under this convention, under the concept of non-reform, a refugee cannot be sent back to his home country without his free consent. And there are so many other responsibilities as well on the ratifying the state party. That's why Pakistan is not ready yet to ratify this convention.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. مراد ستودنت PhD international. من ملاحظاتي أن أحببت التعقيب على الأستاذ سعيد بشأن بحثه. أولا نشكره على حسن العاطفة في أن تبنى موضوع اليمن، لكن حقيقة هناك كثير من المصطلحات استخدمها الدكتور بشكل مفرط، هي مسألة الفقر. تمام؟ هناك مثلا الدكتور عرض خريطة اليمن. هل ممكن من خلال ملاحظة خريطة اليمن أن تلاحظ أن هذا بلد حقيقي؟ الحقيقة نحن نمتلك 3 أبحر لا يمتلكها أي قطر في العالم، لكن ما نعاني منه. الأمر الآخر ذكرت مسألة السكان. السكان عندنا في اليمن لا يتجاوزون إلا سكان مدينة كراتشي هنا في باكستان. لكن أنا لا أريد أن أعقب من أجل التعليق أو الإفراط في التعليق، ولكن أريد أن ألفت الاجتماع إلى نقطة هامة جدا في حياة الشعوب، هي أن كيف بناء الإنسان وعقل الإنسان وثقافة الإنسان تحفظ مستقبل الشعوب. هذا الذي يمكن أن تستفيد منه من الأحداث الآنية عندنا في اليمن. نحن نمتلك ثروات لا يمتلكها أحدا في العالم، لكن المشكلة التي عانينا منها خلال العقود السابقة هي العقلية التي ظلت تدار بها اليمن والسياسة الاستثمارية التي عانينا منها. هذا لا أكثر. فقط هذا ما يمكن أن تدركوه من خلال هذا الاجتماع، أن بناء الشعوب والعقل وبناء عقل الإنسان هو الذي يضمن مستقبل الشعوب. ونحن في اليمن وقعنا في هوة الثقافة الممتدة أو المتدنية أو التي لا تصل إلى مستوى رعاية الإنسان. هذا الذي عانينا منه في اليمن، وهذه ثمرته. أما إذا حصل الاستقرار ستجد أن اليمن في ظرف عقود هي من أغنى دول العالم. هذا ما أحببت التعقيب عليه في مناسبة الخطوة هنا، والشكر جزيلا.
Yes, brother, as I was just catching some parts of your speech because I was not listening properly. You see, this problem didn't start from yesterday. This started from 2015. I think this is very long. When you go to the history, and you will see, that this struggle between different groups and so on was going for a long period of the time. Now, when you have poverty, when you have no education, no development, how then you will build the peace? This is the first of all. Unfortunately, you see the Yemen, and instead that surrounding countries were investing in Yemen, building the Yemen, they just left because for a long period to stay as it is and to cultivate into the conflict which is so much serious now. I may agree with you because no one is following the Islamic law. It was not possible to go into many details about the issues. We are first of all the brothers, and we have to deal as brothers. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we know, said, "You will la yu'minu ahadukum hatta yuhibbu li akhihi kama li nafsihi." This is the basic principles regarding our relationship. Therefore, according to the Islamic law, the territory where are the Muslims, where is Islamic law is implemented, is called a Darul Islam. And this Darul Islam means no borders between the brothers. Therefore, it means also brotherhood and equality. When we talk about the refugees, we know our brother rightly said that there is no concept of refugee in Islamic law, because as a brothers, the land belongs to Almighty Allah. Here we have the issue of sovereignty of the state. In Islamic law, the sovereignty belongs to Almighty Allah. Therefore, from this point of view, land is free for everyone. In another tradition, the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever comes and starts to cultivate the land, that land belongs to him. Therefore, in Holy Quran, Almighty Allah also says, even if the mushrikeen ask for protection, we need it is to be granted to them. What means here, Muslim, the issue is here how much really we are following the Holy Quran and the Sunnah of Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Regarding, I just want to come back to the respected ambassadors. In my presentation, I was really not able to go into details. I'm not representing anyone here, first of all. Why I has taken to write about the rights of the child of the Yemen. First of all, I know what is the war. I have witnessed the war. I was in the war in the Bosnia. I know what means the killing, all these things. And I know that at the end there is no winner in the war. And we see today no winner. You see Afghanistan, you see Iraq, you see the Syria, Muslims are fighting each one, no peace. What? In one hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said when one Muslim killed another, the Prophet ﷺ said both are going to Jahannam. Then Ashab Kiram asked why this who has been killed. Then the Prophet ﷺ said because he wanted to kill his brother. Therefore, the another point why I wanted to say something is hadith from Prophet ﷺ about the Yemen. The Prophet ﷺ said, the people of Yemen have come to you most sensitive in their souls, softest of hearts. Beliefs is from Yemen, wisdom is from Yemen, pride, arrogance are found among the camel owners, tranquility and dignity among sheep owners. It is transmitted in Bukhari and Muslim. I think a lot of, no need more to take time. Thank you very much.
Anybody else? No, thank you. Now I would like to request the chair to please come and give souvenirs to the guest speakers, please. First of all, Dr. Suzik Sejo, please come and collect your souvenir. Ms. Ambareen Abbasi, Mr. Taj Muhammad. I would like to request Barrister Sarah Coleman to please come and present the souvenir to the chair of this session, Ziaullah Rahmani. Thank you very much. all the participants for joining this session. The lunch is arranged for ladies in the adjacent room and for males in the lobby. And the guests are requested to stay here for going upstairs. Thank you very much.